What we are currently observing in the form of sanctions, in the form of the seizure of sovereign states, and attempts at invasion is, above all, unfair and dishonest competition. These methods of unfair competition are used by the West in many spheres, in the economy, in technology, in trade, and in sports, when athletes from one country or another are suddenly excluded from international competitions. This is a very serious matter. So this is a fear of competition, which reflects the West's perception of its own declining influence on world events.
Is the West's power crumbling so badly that Putin's firebrand foreign minister now feels confident enough to deliver this kind of brutal reality check on camera, calling out sanctions, seizures and invasions as signs of deep weakness? When Lavrov says the West's fear of competition is what drives sanctions and even the new showdown with Iran, is he arguing that Washington punishes rivals not because of rules, but because it knows it can no longer win fair fights? By claiming the US-led global system no longer guarantees Western profits, is Russia's top diplomat suggesting that the old order, built to lock in Western economic advantage, is finally starting to fail its own creators? And when he brands seizures, sanctions and invasions as unfair, dishonest competition, is Moscow trying to flip the script, casting the West as the rule-breaker while presenting itself as the champion of a more honest multipolar game? All of this lands as Trump struggles in his Iran war quagmire, with Moscow painting the West as a frightened empire in decline, lashing out at competitors because it fears the next phase of world politics will not belong to it.
What we are currently observing in the form of sanctions, in the form of the seizure of sovereign states, and attempts at invasion is, above all, unfair and dishonest competition. These methods of unfair competition are used by the West in many spheres, in the economy, in technology, in trade, and in sports, when athletes from one country or another are suddenly excluded from international competitions. This is a very serious matter. So this is a fear of competition, which reflects the West's perception of its own declining influence on world events. Like the People's Republic of China, we do not wish harm to anyone. We do not want to punish anyone, and even less do we want to go to war with anyone. But we will firmly defend our interests and our legitimate rights, as the Russian Federation is doing now. China's position on Taiwan is also very clearly formulated and, as I understand it, was confirmed during the recent visit of President of the United States Donald Trump and his talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing. So the world is changing, and it is already becoming multipolar. Another question is that people are now debating whether this multipolarity might turn into chaos. Previously, there was one master who directed everything after the Soviet Union disappeared, and now, supposedly, there will be chaotic, unregulated movement. You know, neither Russia nor China likes such predictions. We do not want a dictatorship of one group of countries to turn into chaos. We are interested in normal relations between all states, including between the structures we're talking about, where Russia and China participate, the SCO and BRICS. President Xi Jinping has a number of initiatives, including the Global Security Initiative and the Global Governance Initiative. We have also outlined our vision of Eurasian security and the Greater Eurasian Economic Partnership in the speeches of President of Russia Vladimir Putin. These initiatives overlap. They are aimed at. The main task is to ensure that all integration processes on the Eurasian continent are harmonized. Hence, we have cooperation between the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and ASEAN, the agreement between the Eurasian Economic Union and the People's Republic of China on promoting coordinated approaches to Eurasian integration, and the concept of the Belt and Road Initiative. In other words, both China and Russia want an orderly formation of a multipolar world. Let me emphasize once again, the principles on which it should be based do not need to be invented. They are in the UN Charter. It is entirely adequate in terms of a fair structure of a multipolar world. The issue is that until recently the West simply ignored these principles, and now it is time to give them new life and translate them into practical action. This is probably the most stable relationship between two great powers in the modern world. It is based on the principles of mutual respect, mutual benefit, and consideration for each other's interests. Any issues are addressed in such a way as to ensure a balance of these interests. This brings balance and stability to relations between the two great neighbors, but at the same time it brings stability to international relations, given the turbulence that is currently tearing apart virtually every region of the world, including our Eurasian continent. The relationship is underpinned by a very solid material foundation. Trade turnover has for several years now significantly exceeded the figure of $200 billion. At its core, of course, lies the energy sector. Russia is the leading supplier of pipeline natural gas to the People's Republic of China. We are among the main suppliers of liquefied natural gas and coal. And quite recently, I believe, a final agreement has been reached on the construction of the largest gas pipeline, Power of Siberia 2. The so-called Far Eastern route is also under discussion. Undoubtedly, in addition to hydrocarbon energy, we have close cooperation on all aspects of the peaceful use of nuclear energy, in space, and in high technology in general. We certainly regard the People's Republic of China as our largest neighbor and key economic partner. We take all these factors into account when planning the development of our territories, including those regions of the Russian Federation bordering China, the Far East, and, above all, southern Siberia. Yes, we are currently actively strengthening our technological alliance. China possesses technologies that help the Russian Federation overcome the artificial, unlawful obstacles created by the West. We are actively pursuing the same course of ensuring our technological independence and our technological sovereignty, as recent events show, in which the West is revealing the true nature of its policy without any pretense. Both China and Russia must, above all, rely on our own strengths and on our, fraternal solidarity. So there's a mutual interest here. You see, the German car industry is currently in the midst of a profound crisis, whilst Chinese cars have become the most popular in Russia. This is one indication of what we say. No place remains empty for long. If the West, the capitalists, have suddenly decided that they will impose sanctions, stop buying certain goods from China, or stop selling certain goods to Russia, and that the economies of China and the Russian Federation will face insurmountable problems, that is a delusion. It is, of course, impossible to subjugate such powers and peoples as the Russian and Chinese. Yet, in the West, they continue to try to bend everyone to their will. So we are on the right track. There was a statement by Xi Jinping, President of the People's Republic of China, that we are entering an era of change the likes of which the world has not seen in a century. A statement on the need for a fair resolution of all international issues, and a clear affirmation in our joint documents of the role of Russia and China as strategic partners, based on the concept of multifaceted, multilateral cooperation across all spheres. This role is clearly enshrined. The most important thing is not even the terms used to describe our relations, but how people feel. Undoubtedly, not only those living in border regions, but also people across Russia and the People's Republic of China respect one another and value our cooperation. Another festival is currently taking place in Harbin. 2026 and 2027 have been declared years of cooperation between Russia and China in the field of education. 60,000 Chinese students are studying at Russian universities, and more than 20,000 Russians are studying at Chinese ones. A huge number of cultural and sporting events are being held. All of this creates a solid foundation at the interpersonal level. When such sentiments prevail in both societies, politicians are far more effective in achieving their goals, including the promotion of Russia's and China's interests on the international stage. Russia and China, as two major powers, play a stabilizing role on the international stage within the context of bilateral relations. The People's Republic of China has already become the world's leading economy. Russia is the world's fourth largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity. At the same time, our country ranks fifth in terms of the contribution of industrial production to GDP. Our presence, together with you, our Chinese friends, among the top 5 rapidly developing nations, in itself creates an advantage and ensures the stability of each of our countries and of our relations. As new centers of economic growth, primarily China, India, Brazil, and a number of African countries, began to develop at an accelerated pace, and as the West's ability to continue using colonial and neo-colonial methods diminished, countries of the global South and East began to demand an end to the model of economic interaction whereby their raw materials were taken from them, natural resources, whilst all the added value was and still is produced in Western countries. The world began to change objectively, not because someone decided to declare it multipolar. This is an objective reality. Power has now been redistributed in the global economy. This redistribution is continuing. We are convinced that this new balance of power must be reflected in the structures that have remained since the Second World War. This includes the UN Security Council. It needs to be reformed by increasing the representation of countries from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. It also includes the Bretton Woods institutions, with a number of votes held by the BRICS countries, bears absolutely no relation to their actual weight in the global economy. But the West is doing everything in its power to resist the establishment of fairness here. The organizations you mentioned, BRICS, SCO, EAU, ASEAN, the African Union, CELAC, are also multilateral hubs for shaping the new global economy. They are developing their own capabilities and increasingly moving away from dependence on the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Incidentally, Russia and China already trade entirely in rubles and yuan. We are seeing similar trends in Latin America, in our relations with other states on the Eurasian continent, and in the ASEAN and SCO countries. This means one simple thing. The financial and economic system that the West has led since the Second World War can no longer function in such a way that Western countries continue to benefit from it. Other countries have begun to outplay them in the system, using the very rules devised by the U.S. and its Western allies.